But I wanted to go see those things in person. I wanted to like I felt connected to the earth in a way I'd never truly felt before, and I now want to go and travel and see that, and part of that is, if I'm not traveling to those places, maybe I can meet the people and connect with the people from those places.
Welcome to A Heart for Space. I am your host, Dr. Eiman Jahangir. Join me as we uncover what it takes to reach beyond the limits of what we think is possible and turn the biggest dreams into tangible reality. Well, Chris, I want to thank you so much for taking the time to join us on A Heart for Space podcast today.
Well, thank you for having me. It's a joy to be here.
Yeah, I mean, you and I have known each other probably closely for about a year, but I've been following your story since Cyan and you got picked up to go on Inspiration 4. So I remember specifically when I went to see Cyan's launch, I was hanging out with the friends and family, and the energy that your family, your extended family brought to that launch was pretty incredible.
Yeah, that surprised me. And I was not surprised to see Haley's family come out and give her the big send off. But man, yeah, my crew, my extended friends and family from college and space camp beyond, they turned out in force.
They definitely represented. But before we get ahead of ourselves, because we will talk about your launch, of course. But for people who don't know you, how would you introduce yourself at like a party? What would you tell people? And it might not be space, right?
Well, it usually isn't, and I've been told I should own that more. But it's like,
That's
hi, I'm
fair.
Chris. Nice to meet you. I've got I'm a dad of two wonderful young daughters. I've got two wiener dogs at home, and we're out here in Gig Harbor, Washington, and just I've been out in the Pacific Northwest for it's coming up on 20 years, and just absolutely enjoy the mountains and the water out this way. And I currently work at Starfish Space, which is exciting to me because we are building the infrastructure that's going to make the space industry successful for the next several decades. So I like to tell folks that I'm building tow trucks for space.
No, and I'm very curious about that. I was going to ask you about it later, but since we're here, I mean, you have a pretty interesting career in aerospace. I mean, you went to Embry-Riddle, and then from there, you worked. I mean, I know you worked at Blue Origin, but before that, you actually worked at another space company, didn't you?
Right. So before that, I joined the U.S. Air Force and worked on big missiles in the middle of Montana, and was part of the electromechanical team out there. Driving out a few hours out to a remote silo, fixing it up, changing codes, driving back.
That's amazing.
Yeah, which I mean, the office size was the size of the state of West Virginia, so you couldn't complain about that, and the scenery was
Yeah.
beautiful. Temperature control, that's a different story, but it was a good time, learned a lot, and I worked in building automation and controls after that, but always, my heart was always in aerospace, and I wanted to stay close to rockets and aviation, and so I ended up working building automation and control and energy efficiency and looking into data, and ended up doing that at Lockheed Martin before the flight. And that's where my first actual aerospace company job came, even though I was doing contract work for other aerospace companies doing automation. And then space called in a big way, and I had to more directly apply my skills into aviation and space. And so that's what led me to Blue Origin to work on New Glenn, doing avionics testing there, getting it ready for flight, which it
Which it
successfully did.
successfully did. Yeah. It was
Yeah,
awesome.
it's fantastic. And my boxes worked, the ones I was responsible for, so I couldn't
That's
be more
fantastic.
happier than I was. And they're getting ready to do their third launch. They just hot fired just a little while ago. So
Yeah, maybe this weekend. I think it's no earlier than this Saturday. I'm gonna try to hop down there if it's over the weekend, but otherwise,
yeah,
can't do it the work
and
week.
I
I mean,
love
it's
that.
an incredible rocket.
And its proximity to Port Canaveral is closer than most that get launched from the Cape, and yeah, it shakes
That's
a lot of
true.
windows. It's pretty exciting. I need to get down there myself at some point and see it in person.
Yeah, I
Um,
mean, it's your hardware going to space.
there's something different about watching a rocket launch on TV or on your phone. as compared to seeing it in person in real life. And that's, I remember that being the inspiration for me to kind of go forward. But then after Blue Origin, and maybe we'll hit that later. But I mean, after Blue Origin, after getting that to first flight, um, I found my new home at Starfish, and it's been a really fun adventure.
It's been fun to see what Starfish is doing, and we can get into that later if we have time. But I guess, where did you grow up, and was space always something that you thought about? Were you one of these kids who was like, "Yes, I love space. I want to look up at the stars," and
Yeah, I mean, gosh, I kind of grew up in the Southeast U.S. between Florida, where I launched my first model rocket with my dad and promptly lost it in a pine tree, uh, to then going to high school in North Carolina. I ended up going to a magnet school in Durham, North Carolina, called the North Carolina School of Science and Mathematics.
was that
And
the same one as Christina Cook? I think I'd seen some. Is that right?
yeah, she and I were in band class together, actually.
I think I saw that recently. You had said that, which is wild.
Yeah, I think so. If I'm not getting my faces in my memory mixed up, I believe she was in the brass section. I was playing the oboe, and
That's wild.
that was as far as our connections probably extended. Maybe we had another
Yeah.
class together. Uh,
It's okay. It was the
yeah,
universe putting out like webs, you know?
yeah, and I think it was Chuck Brady, the astronaut Chuck Brady, that came one day while I was uh, attending that school, and I don't know if Christina was in the room or not, but I remember specifically having this might break your heart, but I had to ask to get out of human anatomy to
That
go have that round table with him.
I think you made the right choice though
Yeah.
for what you ended up
Well,
pursuing.
and yeah, it was amazing. He had just come back from space and was doing his tour of different
Yeah.
schools around the area, and I still remember that story and how he would relay to us that when you go to space, you get smarter. Like you start thinking bigger because now you're thinking in 3 dimensions and all the space that is around you. And so
Interesting.
he related that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so at that school, I had opportunities with my physics professors to at late one night, a few nights that to carry these big telescopes up to the top of the school, up the back stairwell,
Wow.
and start staring at the sky when the haze wasn't too thick, that you could see nebulas and clusters, and you vividly tell the colors of different stars and understand what that means. Um, and learning more about what the that learning more about what we were seeing, how that translated to what the story was behind those celestial objects captured my imagination. And that's why I chose to, start as an engineering physics student at Embry-Riddle in Florida, because I wanted to build
Yeah.
the spacecraft that are doing that incredible science, and I wanted to learn more about it. So, but I still had a technical mind. So that's kind of interesting to say it that way, because now I realize, uh, again, as I look at my progression, my rockets got bigger, and now I've come full circle again to going back to where I started on my original career in college.
Well, and then you also took some of that astronomy piece because if I recall, was it this past summer you were going out into some of these dark spaces with a program to bring astronomy to people and looking.
Yeah, so I haven't done astronomy out with folks, but we've done with my daughter. I mean, it's that same forensics type exploration of science. You look at the clues that you see in front of you, and you try to understand that historical story of why are the planets that way? Why are the stars this color? Why is the electromagnetic spectrum for the elements, shifting slightly one way or another? How's that relate to the speed and relative velocity? You take that same forensic attitude and apply it to, geology. And next thing you know, you are investigating lava flows and craters on Earth and applying that to planets and to the moon to understand, okay, if we see these signs here on the ground and we can understand the formations of those more intimately, we know what we can look for in terms of clues on other planets like Mars or the moon, and start to create the story of what happened in the past. And then I was able to take my daughter
That's
Neela
cool.
out to the New Mexico recently to explore that with some planetary geologists, and it was a wild adventure.
Is
It
she a scientist like you? I mean, does she have that same
oh,
need to question and
yeah, but, she does very differently than me, but she does have it in a way where, I mean, she loves that scientific mindset of I think she's really attracted to the stories of things, she's an avid
nice?
reader,
Yeah,
but when she can hold a rock in her hands and understand why it has certain crystals or why it has certain colors in it, she lights up, and
that's
that's the
awesome.
path she's heading on.
I think if you're someone who can take those stories and relate them to people, then you're successful in any field that you choose.
Yeah. Yeah, I think
Because at
that
the
was
end of the day, we all just wanna know stories, right? That's what
and, for a science and math school, I have to give them credit too for that because it wasn't until, like, my senior year that I realized how important it was to do exactly what you said, and they pushed me to understand the value of humanities and relating those stories because, I mean, if we're gonna look at the bigger picture, it's really important to be able to share those stories and share that knowledge and inspire folks to pursue that, sometimes, gritty science that you have to go do.
no,
Yeah.
that's awesome. Yeah, it's pretty cool. Um, and then, I mean, I had read somewhere that you also lobbied for commercial space at one point in your life. Is that accurate? Before commercial space was really even I mean, I think 2020, 2021, it really took off, but you were working in that before, right?
Yeah, I mean, you go back oh gosh, I don't know, you go back a number of years, back to the 1900s, and you start
The
realizing,
1900.
um, that, that this is back when Kistler Aerospace was a thing, and, DCX was a thing, and Venture Star was supposedly, coming online as a single stage to orbit until somebody actually did the math for the physics of all
Yeah,
of it, realized that's not gonna work. Um, but, uh there was this time where we were seeing the writing on the wall, like, me and a group of students joined up with a bunch of other, um, folks from around the United States, from all walks of life, all ages, and all industries, um, to go to Capitol Hill in a program we called March Storm, and this organization called ProSpace was lobbying for the idea that we want to open up space to more Americans as rapidly as and as much as possible. And so we had this agenda that as a college student, I was able to walk the marble floors of Congress
that's awesome.
and share these stories and why it's important to, well, not just NASA, but why space is important to everyone and why their constituents would benefit from, you know, opening up space, and this was before Lori Garver was part of the NASA administration, and
Yeah.
with when she was when she was part of NASA under Barack Obama, and in the mid 2000s, and so we were those, as she calls us in her book, those space pirates that were walking around Congress trying to say we need to open up space and allow commercial companies like SpaceX and Blue Origin to have these opportunities and promote them, these private public partnerships. And
And
it's
this might have
yeah.
been before Blue Origin even. I mean, this was like if it was the late '90s, I mean, that's an incredible kind of foresight that the
Yeah, Blue
college
Origin
kids
and
had.
SpaceX were founded in, like, the early 2000s, like 2001
Yeah,
to 2003, right?
yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah, well, and there really wasn't a reason for them to exist before that because the space shuttle was, the one size fits all
Yeah,
guaranteed way to get to space, according to the US government, and so competition wasn't really encouraged, but we managed to get some acts passed and
it's
commercial
awesome.
space acts pushed through, and that started to change.
And I like to bring this up because I didn't know all this backstory because I know how you ended up on Inspiration 4, which is, the first all commercial space flight to orbit, which is wild that you were advocating for this, 20 plus years before. And I don't know if people realize that because we think, okay, Inspiration 4, there were these different seats, but like aerospace has been in your bones and your blood, I would say like your whole adult life, if not before, which is pretty cool. I mean, to me.
Yeah, well, it is. I mean, if you look at our Google Home device, my nickname is Rocket Man and has been for way longer, for a decade or so. Maybe not quite that long, but, Yeah, it's been a passion of mine, ever since I first saw, uh, from the Causeway, a space shuttle launch at night,
Oh, man.
um, and seeing the solid rocket boosters just ignite and light up the entire night sky. I mean, that really changes your perspective on what's possible.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I tell people say, "Why don't we build, like, the pyramids anymore?" But to me, like, the space station and the rockets, like, those are our generations, our centuries pyramids are these great technological feats. One day people will be looking at the moon base and they'll be like, "Did they build this? Like, did this really happen?" But
Yeah. How did they
but
get
yeah.
here back in the 1960s with the slide rule?
Yeah.
Yeah, we had to use
Yeah.
AI to engineer our design, right? So
Yeah, wild. Um, and so I guess that segues to the fact that most people watching this probably know you flew to space in 2021 with Inspiration 4. But I don't know if they all know how it happened, and I know that you were the generosity seat, which I had also applied for. I think lots of us did, which was,
thousands of
of
people
course.
applied, yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
should have I should have mortgaged the house and applied more, but I think the wife would have been upset. But tell us like how it happened and kind of your reaction when you found out.
Yeah, so Inspiration 4 was put together by Jared Isaacman, um, when he realized that there was an opportunity to, get a a commercially acquired Dragon to go to orbit, through SpaceX, and he had put together an agreement with them, and he created Inspiration 4 as a way to, yes, do something amazing in space, but also do something equally as incredible on the ground. And so he built it as a as an awareness and a fundraiser campaign for St. Jude Children's Research Hospital, and that got kicked off in I think of October of 2020, and then in February of 2021. I'm oblivious to this whole Inspiration 4 thing happening to this point, but I'm watching the Super Bowl, and as is the unofficial American holiday, and we've got tons of food set out on our coffee table, and my team, the Seahawks, are not in the game, so we're not really watching the game as much as we're watching the commercials or the halftime show, as opposed to this year where we won it all. Yes,
Yes,
um,
yeah, yep.
but my wife stepped out to go, get something else from the kitchen at one point, and this commercial aired, where it shows a SpaceX spacesuit slowly
Yeah.
rotating, and there's a singer in the background, yeah, like a jazz type singer singing, "Twinkle Twinkle Little Star," and then the voiceover comes on and says, "Go to inspiration4.com and you could win a trip to space."
But yeah, I remember
So
that.
yeah, so what did this space nerd do on his phone when his wife wasn't looking? He goes and pulls out his phone and makes a small donation to St. Jude, and uh, realize, you know what? It helps the kids. I'll get a
Yeah.
cool patch out of it. That'll be the end of it. And I'll just have to, sheepishly explain to my wife, well, this charge on our credit card or or whatever it is, and
Yeah.
when it shows up in the mail. Uh, but that's not exactly what happened. What ended up happening was that I lost the sweepstakes. I had forgotten about it over the next, few weeks, but I started getting several calls one Saturday morning, to my phone that was on my nightstand, and it was on my nightstand because I'd forgotten it, but it was my wife's morning to sleep in, and so I hear from her while I'm downstairs, just yell down, "Chris, come get your phone, it's vibrating. Somebody
Yeah.
Inspiration 4 keeps calling you." So I grab my phone, sheepishly, apologize, and my youngest, who was 2 at the time, convinced me. Didn't take too much convincing, actually, but, it was Saturday morning, "Let's go get some donuts." "Alright."
Nice.
So
Yeah.
we're driving to one of our favorite donut places, and I call this Inspiration 4 number back to see what this is all about, and this guy named Kid, so how he introduces himself, says he's,
Yeah.
doing a verification of some information on a quote unquote "deep pool of candidates." Um, Now I had no idea how shallow that pool of candidates actually was, but he was the
Yeah.
worst used car warranty salesperson on the phone I had ever heard. But he did say all the
Yeah.
red flag things like, "Please send me your Social Security number,
That's
some
right, that's
personal
right.
identity information, and do it fast."
No
um,
time to lose.
that's right. So I call him out on the phone saying, "This is I remember donating now, but, can you remind me who you are? How do I look you up?" He's like, "Oh, yeah, of course. You look me up on LinkedIn. My name's Scott Kid Petit." And it's like, okay, he does have a real name. That's cool.
Yeah.
But then he said, goes on to say, "Yeah, I'm a retired Air Force colonel, former weapons school instructor, F-16 pilot, former Thunderbird."
No
That
big deal.
just he says it very nonchalantly, and
Yeah.
I'm all of a sudden raising both eyebrows and thinking, this is not who I expected to be talking to on my way to the donut shop this morning.
That's
But anyway, I get on the call. He convinces me to send the information, and I realize that LifeLock subscriptions are running through my head, like just in
yeah.
case. But he gets me on the Zoom call the next morning, and I meet a kid on Zoom over my phone, as well as Jared Isaacman sitting there, and then all the things that we mentioned just earlier, like lobbying Congress, watching shuttle launches, launching high power rockets in the swamps of Florida. I did those with a friend of mine and roommate in college who was also the best man at my wedding, Kyle. And
Wow.
uh, they actually I see Kyle show up on this call. And so now I'm thinking, okay, this deep pool of
It's
candidates
a
includes my
prank.
friend Kyle.
yeah.
So, like, wait a second, what's he doing here? Is he part of this interview process as
Yeah.
well? Are we in competition, butting heads?
Wild.
But I didn't say that. What I did say was like, I'm surprised, and I say, "Well, it's surprised to see my friend Kyle here. We haven't seen each other in a long time. I'm in Washington State. He's in Florida, and which is where he lives, and couldn't be farther apart." It's like, "Well, Kyle, it's good to see you. It's been a long time. How you doing?" And I tell Jared, "Yeah, we go way back." And his very Jared kind of way just kind of
Yeah.
nods up and down, and it's like, "I'd like to hear more about that in a little bit." And but then he goes on with the agenda, and that's when I realized, oh, Kyle won, but he can't accept the prize, so he's giving it to me, and that's what
That's
they're verifying
incredible.
right now. That
Yeah.
deep pool of candidates was not that deep. It was just a pool of one,
Yeah.
and next thing I know, Jared tells me, "You're 6 months. You're gonna go to space."
That's amazing. That's incredible. I mean, it is. And it's more incredible because it's the generosity seat. And, people say like it's luck and it's this and but to me, it's like your whole history. And then the way it all turned up. I mean, this is like, I don't know. I'm a big, big proponent of like things happen the way they're supposed to. Things happen to people that are prepared. And you were very well prepared. You had this friend who offered you a seat that was the generosity seat. I mean, I think it's very poetic and I think it's awesome that it happened that way.
Right. Well, you
There's
couldn't
no
have.
better way.
Yeah, I mean, for one thing, it could have been just pure luck. Whoever they pulled out of the hat could be the person. But on the way this ended up happening, it's just like you said. You start to connect the dots. I could never have imagined putting myself in that seat intentionally. But the way things worked out and being
Yeah,
ready, being ready for an opportunity. Good luck is what they call that. It's being ready for when an opportunity comes along. It's you start looking back and you realize the little dots start to connect themselves together. The rockets were getting bigger. My
that's right.
advocacy for space is coming around full circle, which I then had to go and thanks all the people that lobbied with me later. Um,
Yeah,
um, and in fact, I took some of their I took some of their patches and artwork to space with me.
that's
Um,
cool.
and then you realize that okay, this was probably exactly where I needed to be, and I'm in the right place at the right time. And then we ended up putting together a crew in a way that you could not have intentionally assembled.
Yeah. Well, and Cyan to me, I remember I was driving. Cyan's been a friend of mine since 2009 when we were at NASA together, and I was driving with my wife, and on NPR they announced the crew, and it was Cyan Proctor. And I had spoken to Cyan like 2 months before, or 3, like January for around her birthday or whatever.
Yeah.
And we were both like, "Well, we're probably neither ever going to space." And then here on the radio, I hear Cyan's going to space. I mean, it was an incredible just experience. I think the whole thing all around. So
Well, yeah, and I
very cool.
remember, that's the day before we go public with the announcement, that night before, I think, it was, let's see. Yeah, so I think her birthday was, like, March 28th because my
Yeah,
youngest daughter's birthday was March 29th, the day of the announcement that we were gonna go to space, so she got to celebrate her birthday in Orlando, um, so as a
that's pretty
three-year-old,
cool.
but,
Yeah,
we got on a Zoom call, or she got on a Zoom call with a group of friends, because she had some big news to tell her close friends and family, and Jared said, "Yeah, why don't you go ahead and tell them?" And, we met. All four of us were there where she got a chance to tell everybody, my dream's always been to go to space, and just told them that she had won the prosperity seat, and that was so exciting. Like
yeah,
her brother, and who's in Australia, just pulled out the Neil Armstrong autograph that was sitting in his house and just started crying and just so excited for.
no, it was awesome. And I know we had talked about generosity, so now you've gone, you've been to space, you're back, here you are. How has your idea of what generosity means to you changed? Like, has it changed? Because I mean, everyone talks about, and I know you know Frank White well and the overview effect, and going to space, maybe it makes some people think in 3 dimensions. You went in with a very clear, like, pillar, which was generosity. So I guess how is that what's your
Yeah,
definition
so
now?
generosity, I mean, I mean, honestly, it has changed. Generosity at one level is, what's the next nice thing you could do for your family or for your friends? And then when you're presented with an incredible opportunity to fly to space and to see the Earth in this way, it's, it's about paying it forward now. It feels like the generosity that was that was extended towards me. It's become a duty. It's become an obligation, self-driven, that I pay that generosity forward in ways that are, maybe sometimes less tangible than just handing somebody something. And part of what that generosity means to me is, sharing these stories, like we're doing now, just answering questions and realizing that generosity is more than just breaking bread together. It's sharing of your heart, of your connections with other people. It's understanding. It's being willing to understand others in a way that maybe I felt a little bit more isolated or walled off to in the past. And so, one of the things that I took from space that I did not expect was how much I want to connect with all the parts of the world that I had seen from orbit, and how beautiful our planet is. Part of that, while I, didn't have a passport then, I got one after I came back. So, fun fact, you can travel the world without a passport as long as you stay out of the atmosphere. But, but
I
but I
think it
wanted to go
matters
be
where you
amongst those
land and
things. Yeah, that's right.
yeah, that's
Just stay out. Just maybe pack some O2 in your suitcase, and
that's
you'll be
right.
good. But I wanted to go see those things in person. I wanted to like, I felt connected to the earth in a way I'd never truly felt before, and I now want to go and travel and see that, and part of that is, if I'm not traveling to those places, maybe I can meet the people and connect with the people from those places and hear their
Yeah.
stories and and share that connection, and that's part of that generosity spirit. That's what it means to me now.
I mean, I think it is important. There's, still less than 800 people who've been to space. When you went up, you were probably like 620, 630 around there, I imagine.
I was like 579
Less
or
than
something like
600
that.
then.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it is an incredible I don't think people still appreciate how few people out of billions have still gone to space. Um, yeah, I mean, that's pretty powerful. Have you been able to go to any of these countries yet? Because you have a family, so much like me, I mean, I saw after the flight, Haley and Cyan were traveling the world, but I mean, as a father of, like, at that point, maybe a 3-year-old, and then another child, I assume it's hard to travel still.
It's still hard to travel, right, so my list is still pretty long, but,
Yeah.
I've managed to get to Australia, I managed to
Nice.
get to a little bit of Europe, a couple parts of Germany and to England, but there's still a long list of things to go and explore.
No, that's awesome. What surprised you the most? Like, something you wouldn't think about when you went to space? Not like an after effect, but, like, actual experience of being in space. Because people probably told you, oh, you might get sick and weightlessness is this, but like, what were you like, oh, that was totally unexpected?
You know, gosh, I think first, I think getting adjusted to space at first was weird for me. Like I went into it thinking I don't want to get sick. I've got to do my job. I'm going to take it slow,
Yeah.
keep my head upright, and I think I overdid it in my mind so that at one point for like a few seconds I caught myself even speaking in slow motion, and that was really odd. It's like, what are you doing? So I had to snap out of that really quick
Yeah.
for half a moment, and then uh, that was just a really strange thing. Uh, but then, like, what am I doing? Shake out of it,
Yeah.
and I think what really surprised me was, uh, you know, after a day or so, your inner ear turns off. You're able to operate in space as if you were born there, and had a
Yeah.
lot of fun. I would end up working on some project with my hands that I know whether I was getting something out of a lower cargo hold or whatnot, and then, come up for quote unquote for air, but start looking around to see where I was and realize my legs have all of a sudden swung around 90 degrees without even noticing it. Um,
Yeah. That's
so that
crazy.
to me that was wild.
Yeah. Just the whole spatial orientation.
Yeah. Well, and it's surprising too that you get to use all that space in 3 dimensions. So, you can fit into a lot more places than you would imagine that you couldn't fit into when you're training in the simulator on the ground. There's a little
Yeah.
shelf just on the behind the screens that that turns out to be a nice little place to tuck yourself into, just like as you were a kid. If you well, back in my day when they had drive-in movie theaters, you could, you sit on the back windowsill of the rear window
Yeah.
and kind of look out towards through the front, and that became a place to lie down. That's kind of what that little shelf was like.
I mean, that's cool. And that's what I think with the Artemis mission, people are like, this was so small. It's basically was like, I think 2 van sizes. But I'm like, in 3D, it's a little more space. I mean, it's tight, but
Sure. I mean, I think they
you
may
get
have
to
had
go to
a
the
more
moon.
volume than Dragon, but
They did, I think.
yeah, but regardless, Dragon has these nice slick white walls to make it look clean and open and airy, and
Yeah.
Orion was very functionally thought through, and so
It's like the space station versus Vast, building their space station. It's like,
right, form versus function,
yeah,
it's optimized for sight lines versus optimized for all the function we need to take
mental
care of.
health. Yeah.
Yeah, right.
I remember seeing there was a woman speaking about one of the analogs that NASA built. I forget, it's one of the like 6-month ones. I think they're currently underway.
Oh, yeah.
But the design concept of the company they hired was beautiful. It's like beautiful countertops, wood, and like nice reclining chairs and then she's like, this is what we designed and this is what we proposed to NASA and then this was what was built. And it was exactly what you said. It's like form versus function. And
And
I get
budget.
it. They want to
Yeah,
be stewards of our money, right? And we should be thankful that they're stewards of our money
sure. Well,
because
on
we're
on
all
this
funding that.
on the flip side, though, I mean, having good form plays into the astronaut's health and mental state of things too. I think, uh, being in an unfamiliar environment without a lot of training and resiliency built up, it's nice to be able to have, a place that's easy to spot discrepancies, or it's easy to understand, what's out of place, and just to have something that feels clean and fresh. Uh, uh, and then also that kind of plays into the idea of why music became important to play,
Yeah.
um, and making sure that we're all in a good state of mind throughout the mission.
Well, and it's interesting because you said, training and resilience, but the astronauts that train for NASA, the professional career astronauts, they train for years in advance, including with those ships. So I do wonder if you're right that particularly for commercial space, you need to make it much more form with the
Yeah,
function. But for the NASA astronauts, this is like what they live in, right? It's like living in a submarine or an aircraft carrier. Like you're used to it, that's your life. So
you're absolutely right. Yeah, I mean, a
yeah.
lot of them have gone through the military, oddly like I did, but they for a longer period of time and probably some more stressful situations, going through SEER training and things like that. But I think to your point, I think Jared saw that as as an issue as well, which is why he asked us to go climb Mount Rainier, a 14,000-foot volcano here in Washington State, and to spend 2 nights in little tents up in the snow during COVID. So
Yeah.
so build in some of that, mental toughness and resiliency, getting used to the idea of being uncomfortable, but being comfortable about that. So,
Yeah. And being in close quarters with 3 people you didn't know 3
right.
months ago. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, you know, you've spent decades dreaming of going to space. How did you sustain the belief kind of in life that how do you sustain the belief in life for something that maybe not is not guaranteed? Now, I don't know if you ever thought, "Oh, I'm definitely gonna get to space someday," and maybe that's not the one, but, like, how do you continue believing and moving forward, even if something's not guaranteed?
That's a great question, and frankly, I did not believe I would ever become an astronaut, nor did I believe I would find a way to get to space in some other way. Uh, I just knew that I was inspired by seeing a space shuttle launch and seeing these people talk about what it's like to go through astronaut training and wanting to be close to that, wanting to be close to that energy, to that excitement, to that engineering. And for me, it was like, hey, well, what can I do that, I get to be close to that or imagine that I'm in mission control for the day. And so for me, it was like building
Yeah,
those model rockets or just having that conversation. And it wasn't necessarily something I constantly pushed for, but it was taking advantage of the opportunities that came around. If there was like a science museum day or there was a guest astronaut coming to the Museum of Flight here in Seattle, um, or if there was an opportunity one of the days when I was, you know, lobbying Congress on Capitol Hill to, maybe the next afternoon when we're done with our appointments to walk through the Air and Space Museum for a little while. It's going and exploring when the opportunities arise and saying yes to strange things. It was odd as a freshman in college to join up with these upperclassmen and say, "Yes, I'm going to go to DC and talk to Congress about space and say that
yeah,
I'm
I
going
mean,
to
that's
start
cool.
passing." Yeah, uh, freshmen in college are barely out of high school and don't know
Yeah,
which way is up yet. And so here
yeah.
I am just saying yes to very uncomfortable situations, doing things that scare me a little bit and seeing what happens.
And
And
I
I think
guess
that's
that leads what's the most important thing about perseverance that you wish you had understood earlier then? Because some of this is perseverance, right? It's like you persevered in the world of aerospace and you did different things, interesting things, but like and now you're still keeping at it, right? You're still
yeah.
in that field.
I think a lot of that comes from becoming a parent, too, starting to recognize that what you have to do on a daily basis may not always be fun. I like to joke, and say that, as a dad, I'm in charge of all things icky, sticky, and gross, in the house. And so you gotta persevere through that, and take care of those things. And start I think for me, a big part of it was recognizing things in my kids that I really saw them struggle with, and then seeing them being a reflection of me and realizing maybe I do have some signs of ADHD, or maybe I do have some
Yeah.
things here that maybe I need to go address, and I think that was a big lesson for me. And so it took
Yeah.
if I had known that maybe 20 years earlier, my path would have been a lot different. Um, but I could never have imagined that. And I think it always goes to show that things line up for a specific reason, and you end up being in the right place where you're supposed to be at the right time, um, regardless of all that. And so persevering through some of those things, I think the big part is just not letting, my passions get squashed by anyone and just pursuing some of those exciting little things on the side that pop up
Yeah.
every now and then, like building model rockets or going and checking out, the new space exhibit that's in town. Don't let someone say, "Don't I you shouldn't do that. That's a silly dream." Like, just kind
Yeah.
of block those people out and pursue them anyway.
Yeah, I interviewed a guy named John Pritnick recently, just this past week, and this guy is amazing, world record holder for rolling frying pans. I think it's incredible.
Alright.
But all he does is speak around the world to kids, right? And he says their dream makers and dream breakers, and you should not surround yourself with dream breakers. You should just focus on the dream makers, because there are always going to be those people say, that's silly, don't do that. What do you mean you're into model rockets? You're a grown man. Like, why would you be into model rockets?
Yeah.
I think that's a very true. And the parenting thing is valid. I mean, I think we could probably, you and I could make a talk about, like a keynote talk about how raising kids is getting ready for space or something, because you're stuck with you're in a tight situation with some kids that aren't always rational.
Absolutely. Yeah. Cargo management, schedules.
Oh,
You got to stay on
man.
timelines. Yeah.
That's
Uh,
right. Trying to get
housekeeping is
people to
super
move.
important. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Now this podcast is for people who have big dreams that maybe, they don't feel like they have permission to pursue, kind of like what you're saying. What does your ability to achieve a goal, maybe it wasn't even a goal you really had set for yourself, through generosity, tell us about staying ready and connected and open, and the need for community in all of this when we're trying to do crazy things like go to space?
I mean, that's a loaded question. That's yeah, you've got a few self-help books in in that question, but I think I do think like the perseverance of it all is important, and surrounding yourself with the right people. I mean, Cyan is one of those people that will uh, push you beyond what you thought you were comfortable doing, and then think bigger. So she was an incredible person to talk to along the way. But I I think it's about surrounding yourself with folks that are of like minds, that excite you, that are encouraging, that are kind, and then showing kindness and generosity to people in everyday moments. Those things are those things are underrated, and they push the needle a lot farther forward than you can imagine. And I also, you have to tell people what you love and what you're passionate about, and if they know that when something comes up, when an opportunity comes up and they have to think about, who am I going to find for this particular project, whether it's going to space, becoming an astronaut, if it's or working on a program or some AI related material, or even if it is engaging with kids, whatever it is, who are they going to think of when they need an expert in a field? Are they going to think about someone who's kept their dreams silent and quiet? Are they gonna
Yeah.
think about the person who they know has this passion for space, or passion for kids, um, or passion for coding, and has done the odds and ends here to go and pursue that passion? Who are they gonna tap to come up and step up to the plate to be with them when they need that person? And I think that's how Kyle chose me to be in that spot.
Do you guys talk more now, actually? I think that's beautiful that
But we still
yeah.
talk, I mean, off and on
More
again.
than you
It's
did?
he's doing his thing, and I'm doing my thing, staying busy here in the Northwest. He's flying all over the place, with the airlines,
Oh, that's cool.
and I'm raising these 2 kids here, but we do stay connected, from time to time, just like the crew. Once we, went to space, we've been connected ever since as well.
Yeah, very close, I imagine. There's not a lot of opportunities or, like, situations where you experience that with other people.
Yeah. I mean, we saw that with the Artemis 2 crew when they came back, and
Uh,
their stories. I mean, you can't help but fall in love with those guys
yeah, that
and
was
gals.
beautiful. I think that is what we needed as a nation,
We need that
maybe as
every
a
day,
world.
every day.
We do, and they were just perfect. Yeah, it is like the perfect crew. Artemis 3 is gonna be a rough, and then Artemis 4 is gonna be a rough,
Follow
act to
how do you
follow.
pick a crew to top that? Well, yeah, that's yeah, well, I mean, the same it's Jared wasn't gonna go to space again after Inspiration 4 unless
Yeah.
he could do it with another big purpose, and to help push the needle farther to get more humanity to space and beyond, that's why the Polaris Dawn program became a very ambitious a commercial spacewalk flight.
Yeah, very ambitious,
Um,
yeah.
yeah, four dozen or so experiments were on board. They were an incredible crew. They did everything to the next level, including Starlink communications, and
Yeah.
which
From
is
like
wild.
800 miles in orbit. I mean,
Their highly elliptical orbit was an incredible thing. Um, and he continued to push the envelope even further and take on the next big challenge, becoming the NASA administrator. Uh,
yeah.
which I mean, that is that is a huge mountain to climb, and he's still trucking up that hill, which is amazing.
And by
And
all means, doing a great job to date. So,
I think so too. Yeah,
yeah, which has been nice.
he's inspiring and encouraging people, and he's put a new energy in to an organization that has needed it for a long time.
He has put new energy in not just NASA, but another thing that's near and dear to both our hearts, which is space camp.
Right.
Because if you recall during COVID, there was a Save the Space Camp campaign, which I contributed to because they didn't know if they were going to be able to have enough. People may not realize this, but Space Camp is a nonprofit. They have their own funding source. They run off donations. Um, and the money they make running Space Camp. But then Jared came in and they're about in 2 months, in a month, we're going to have a brand new training center thanks to the generosity of Jared and the other people who have been inspired by him and by Inspiration 4. So are you going to be actually at the grand opening? I don't know if you're going to be there.
That's the
The ribbon
plan.
cutting.
Yeah, I've got
All
the
right.
invite, and
All right.
just gotta get
I'll
that
be there
travel
too.
arrangement. Oh,
I'll
amazing.
be there with my son. So I'm going to bring my son. Yeah.
That's cool. Yeah, I've managed to sign the steel beam of the building so far.
That's awesome. Yeah.
So it from the renderings I've seen and communication I've had with some of the folks that are managing that project, it's it's the next level. If we had the Space Camp movie in the 80s that allowed all of us to fly the dream about flying the space shuttle,
Yeah.
we're in a completely new era that needed a completely new uh, take on how to travel to space and what the missions look like, and they're getting the incredible upgrade that Space Camp's needed for a long time.
No, I'm excited. And actually, I think you're going to be at the alumni weekend. Are we talking together? I think we might be
Oh,
on a
that's
panel.
true too. Yeah, Heather
Yeah,
Nelson, and
but
yeah,
I'm sending my wife and my son to space camp that weekend, the
cool.
family space camp, because I remember your wife went when you guys got inducted with your children, I think, or at least one of your children.
Yeah, so yeah,
Um,
my wife and older daughter had a chance to do
yeah,
the family camp that weekend, and
yeah. So we're gonna do the same this year for my son and my wife, and I'm gonna watch the 3-year-old.
it's a lot of
Um,
fun. Yeah, Space Camp's an amazing place, with Aviation Challenge and the robotics camp and the cyber camp. It's a really cool place, and I think what people a lot of times don't realize is that, okay, you don't have to be 10 years old. Uh,
that's right.
they have an adult camp, they have an educators camp. You don't have to have kids to go back to space camp. You can go as
That's
an
right.
adult. Just
That's
look for
right.
those dates, and it's an inspiring and
And it's gonna
exciting
be
place.
even better. I mean, it was cool when we went, but it's gonna be, I think, starting a month from now, it's gonna be pretty incredible.
Yeah, and they're going to continue to roll things out over the next year and a half as well as that whole building comes online.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. Okay, one last question. So we ask everyone, this is a Heart for Space podcast. So what is the space inside yourself or out in the world that you're still reaching for?
Gosh,
Space was, pretty big, but I feel like as humans, we continually challenge ourselves. So what's the next thing?
yeah. Oh, for me, that's great. It's a really good question. Uh, for me, it's building that connection with people from all over the world to relay to them some of what Frank White's message is with the overview effect, and what he's discovered through his interviews, and sharing my part in that, to tell others that we're all connected together in this system that we so happen to call Earth, and that you need to understand that Earth is a planet. It's this little dust ball in space that so happens to be perfect for us to treat as a spaceship, and we should all treat each other as crew. And I have that pull to tell other people that, to draw them in with a neat story, to build connections with folks next to them. You can look and to see, you know, when Victor Glover came back to his house and was, standing in his driveway and he was addressing his neighbors. It's like, I don't know everybody here. Maybe you don't know everybody here either. And
Yeah.
I'm editing him highly since I can't remember verbatim, but I don't want you all to be strangers. I don't want to be strangers to
Yeah.
you anymore. we need to fix that. We need to connect with one another and love one another. And that's the ultimate message of what a space traveler can bring back.
That's beautiful. I love it. Well, I don't think there's any better thing to end than on that note. And so thank you so much for taking the time today to spend and talk.
It's been a pleasure. Thanks so much for a great chat.
Thank you for listening to A Heart for Space. If you enjoyed this conversation, be sure to follow the show so you never miss an episode, and consider leaving us a review to let us know your thoughts. For more on my work in the pursuit of ambitious goals, visit aheartforspace.com and look out for my upcoming book, A Heart for Space. Until next time, I'm Dr. Eiman Jahangir. And remember, sometimes the only obstacle to achieving an impossible dream is the courage to keep going.